We need to talk about ideas, good ones and bad ones. We need to learn stuff about the world. We need an honest, intelligent, thought-provoking, and entertaining review of what the hell happened on this planet in the last 7 days. We need to sit back and listen to the Iron Fist and the Velvet Glove.
Yes, we are back. Episode 476. I'm Trevor, a.k.a. the Iron Fist.
Yeah, the Iron Fish.
The Iron Fish. Special Envoy for detecting bullshit at your service.
Right.
Joe.
Evening all.
The tech guy. Joe's over there. So, no, Scott tonight, he couldn't make it. It's just the two of us. So, yeah. And we will talk about what happened in the last 7 days. Most notably is a report which has been released by the Special Envoy to combat anti-Semitism. And we'll be talking about what she had to say. And it was essentially, she came out with a report which was pretty much, Joe, a blueprint for silencing dissent when it comes to Israel and the genocide that it's
shock horror.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that. And then for a little bit of comedic relief towards the end, we'll slip over to the disunited States of America to just catch up with the latest craziness that's coming out of that country. So yeah, that's on the agenda. If you're in the chat room, I should put that up so I can see it. Say hello, and we'll do our best to incorporate your comments. Are you outraged by what's happened? So, Joe, we were talking about Crohn's disease and other things before going to live to air. Did you spend much time looking at Gillian Segal's report, and did you have any thoughts about it before I launch into it?
No, I've seen other things, but not that.
Right, okay. So yeah, the Albanese government, in its wisdom, decided that we needed a special envoy to combat anti-Semitism. And that is Gillian Segal. And, yeah. So she's come out with a report with recommendations to the government about what she thinks needs to be done in this big brown land of ours. And, the key thing, there's various things that she's calling for that are just unacceptable. It really is a blueprint for silencing dissent. It's about controlling the institutions in Australia and forcing them to be silent about anything that's critical of Israel. It's what it comes down to, and employing government assistance and government institutions to achieve that end. So yeah, what she calls for, 2.6 of the report, broad adoption of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's working definition of anti-Semitism. She says that's key to distinguishing potentially legitimate critique from hate, especially, Joe, when anti-Zionism masks anti-Semitism. So it's a concern, Joe, when her report basically states that sometimes it's anti-Zionism masks anti-Semitism.
Well, it can, but I think in the vast majority of cases it doesn't.
Has your microphone changed?
No.
Why can't I hear you so well?
No, the volume's up.
You sound like you're on a different microphone.
So it is. There you go. Is that better?
Go. Yeah, that's better. So yeah, anti-Zionism can sometimes mask anti-Semitism, apparently. Whereas I would have thought in most cases it's people just being very specific that they're addressing Zionism rather than Semitism in their criticism quite often.
Well, yeah, I mean, fuck Israel is one thing, fuck Jews is another.
Indeed it is. So, where was I?
Although, did you see the High Court, Supreme Court, the something court ruled that criticising Israel wasn't anti-Semitism?
Yes, I did see that. But she, our special envoy, wants institutions, universities, cultural groups, the government, all walks of life in Australia to adopt the definition from the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. And I guess, Joe, we'll talk about it as we speak about this, but there are various different Jewish groups who have a very different view of the world. And just because you're quoting a group that seems to have a connection to the Jewish community doesn't mean that everybody in the Jewish community agrees with it. And there might be significant numbers who disagree. So just because it comes from the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance doesn't mean, we just have to accept whatever they say. We don't. So we've talked about this in the past because there was calls for universities to adopt this definition of anti-Semitism. I'll read some of it. It's not worded very well. So the current definition, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed towards Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, towards Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. To me, that's a terrible word salad that's been concocted by a committee of people with no intention of truly passing on the meaning of the words. Like, that is just a collection of words thrown together that doesn't mean a lot. But the worrying thing is, they say, to guide IHRA in its work, the following examples may serve as illustrations. And it's in the examples of this group of anti-Semitism that we find things spelt out which are of a concern. Primarily, Joe, it would be anti-Semitism to draw comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis.
Well, I would disagree with that.
Yes, I would have thought you could draw comparisons with contemporary Israeli policy and that of the Nazis in their persecution of the Palestinians, in their rounding them up into concentration camps. I think comparisons can be made.
Yeah, I mean, there are some comparisons of early behaviours of the Nazi state, but they're not forced to display signs in their shop windows. They're not forced to wear badges.
They're never going to be exactly the same.
No, exactly. But certainly the forcing all of the Palestinians in Gaza into one small enclave that is cut off from the rest of the world.
Yes. Starving them in a ghetto-like
Exactly.
situation.
Putting them into a ghetto, I think, is definitely a worrying thing.
Certainly you could have a debate where you draw comparisons, and you should be able to do that without being called anti-Semitic, because you are essentially talking about what Israeli policy is to the Palestinians.
And not what Jewish people are doing, but what Israelis, specifically the IDF, are doing.
Correct. Yep. It would also be anti-Semitic, according to them. An example would be claiming that the existence of the State of Israel is a racist endeavour. The way they conduct things in the West Bank, for example.
I think it was more that a separate nation for the Jewish people is a racist endeavour. But I think that's no more racist than a nation for the Italian people or for the German people or for the Brits. The idea of Zionism was against the background of European nationalism of the late 19th, early 20th century.
Also in this guide from the IHRA that our special envoy wants us to adopt as the definition of anti-Semitism, in all of our institutions, universities, government, law. Talks about criticism of Israel similar to that levelled against any other country cannot be regarded as anti-Semitic, which makes sense on the face of it. But Joe, Israel's doing things that no other country is doing. So you might want to make criticisms of Israel that are not similar.
They're doing similar to Serbia did in the 1990s.
Well.
So let's not compare them against Nazi Germany. Let's compare them against Serbia of the 90s.
Oh, okay. So that sort of criticism would be similar to that levelled against any other country. So that would be okay. Yeah. Okay, we could get away with it then. So anyway, that's the definition that she wants to adopt of anti-Semitism. And now, in her actual report that she prepared, since 7th of October 2023, anti-Semitism has risen to deeply troubling levels in Australia. And Joe, this is a narrative that is just sort of accepted amongst different reporters. And we've already looked at things like the caravan and other things, the attacks on the synagogue, often by sort of two-bit sort of operatives employed by other people who don't seem to have an ideological motivation for what they're doing. Even the most recent one where there was a fire bombing of the door of the synagogue where people were inside by a guy who claims to be Iranian, but he really doesn't seem to have any history of being particularly politically active in anything. So his motivations are not clear at all what he was doing.
Well, ironically, it's the mosques that there are regular services, as far as I understand, blaming all the evils of the world on Israel and the Jews. Mm-hmm. So I think if there is anti-Semitism in Australia, it's almost certainly coming from the mosques.
Yeah, could be.
Because there's and I don't know how prevalent it is, but certainly there is Saudi Arabia funds an awful lot of mosques and imams, and they are a particular religious extremism, I would say. Yep. They are not the liberal form of Islam.
It's a Wahhabist version.
And whilst the vast majority, I would say, of Muslims are fairly moderate, the people standing up at the pulpit seem to be firebrands of a worrying sort. And so it wouldn't surprise me if there was a level of anti-Semitism, and maybe this guy heard it coming from the pulpit and acted on it.
Yeah, well, if he was, who knows? But his motivations and intentions are unknown.
Yeah.
And the sort of incidents that she's relying on in her report, like she referred to the firebombing of a childcare centre, which was nothing to do with, it was adjacent to a synagogue, but nothing to do with sort of Jewish operations at all. So yeah, she also quotes some statistics, which we'll get onto when I'll talk about that later. So,
but that's like Lyle Shelton claiming that people were trying to blow up the ACL when that guy tried to kill himself in the car park of the ACL. It was a coincidence.
Yes, indeed. So she makes the comment in her report, research commissioned by the Special Envoy highlights a stark divide between Australians under 35 and those over 35, reflecting generational differences in media consumption and the perceptions younger Australians have of the Middle East and the Jewish community. So she's very much aware that younger Aussies under 35 are not happy with the genocide and a big quite different to the over 35s.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly know my daughter. The Second World War was in a living generation for me and for you. You know, our parents, grandparents fought in the war.
Mm.
And I don't know that my daughter has met anybody who was involved around during the Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for me particularly, growing up in what had been Nazi-occupied Britain, it was very close to home. I had close friends who were deeply involved.
Mm-hmm.
So it was front of mind. And I think possibly older generations are more likely to have a little more leeway in terms of behaviour. But I certainly wouldn't say they'd be condoning genocide.
There's certainly a favourable outlook towards Israel in the older generation, the boomers, again,
Yes.
compared to the under 35s. So it depends on the propaganda they've been indoctrinated with. So, yeah. Hello to James and John in the chat. Right. What else does she say in this report? Joe, I'm going to talk about Gramsci later on. Don't know if you remember, but Gramsci was the Italian sort of philosopher who was really about, to change the world, you needed to change the institutions. You needed to get control of the institutions. And we know with the Christians and their 7 mountains mandate that they look at media, education, various sort of fields of cultural endeavour where you needed to control those institutions to change public opinion. And I think that Gillian Segal has read a bit of Gramsci because she's into trying to control the institutions. So when it comes to education, key actions that she recommends: with the support of government, the Envoy will embed Holocaust and anti-Semitism education with appropriate lesson plans in national and state school curricula in coordination with government, Catholic and independent school systems. The Envoy will establish a project to support trusted voices to publicly refute anti-Semitic views, particularly via social media platforms. In universities, she says universities must adopt the definition of anti-Semitism that is effective in addressing anti-Semitism. Universities must embrace cultural change to end their tolerance for anti-Semitic conduct. Some of her key recommendations, actions for universities, Joe: the Envoy will develop and launch a university report card assessing each university's implementation of effective practices and standards to combat anti-Semitism. The Envoy will work with government to enable government funding to be withheld, where possible, from universities, programs or individuals within universities that facilitate, enable or fail to act against anti-Semitism. All public grants provided to university centres, academics or researchers can be subject to termination where the recipient engages in anti-Semitic or otherwise discriminatory or hateful speech or actions, and a commission of inquiry into campus anti-Semitism, including the sources of funding for organised clusters of anti-Semitism, should be commissioned by the federal government if systemic problems remain in universities by the start of the 2026 academic year. Does that all sound a bit Trumpian to you, Joe? That
I don't know
attack
Trumpian,
on universities?
certainly Orwellian.
Yeah.
I can understand a broad task force or whatever tasked with racism in general that includes anti-Semitism as part of it, but I don't see one group should be called out as special because that in itself is racist.
Indeed.
And again, I don't have a problem with a segment, a session on genocide in general being taught to school children. I think that's a very important discussion and include the Holocaust as part of that.
And the
But the
Armenian
Holocaust-
genocide. I wished I'd learnt more about that. So,
And the Armenian,
and the Rwanda genocide. And
the Rwanda genocide, and also the Bosnian massacres. There have been a number of them. And, why don't we call out the massacre of the Aboriginals in Australia and the Native Americans in America?
Yes. And throw in the Gaza genocide.
Well, yes.
While you're doing the genocide instruction.
Yeah. I think it would be very good to discuss where one group of people have been hell-bent on wiping out another group of people.
Yep. But to have one particular group say that they're going to be
the arbiters of, yes. I worry about that. Because whilst the Holocaust is important and we should remember it, there are other genocides that we should equally know about.
Yeah, and it's this control of funding and the threat to universities. We will withdraw your funding into lecturers and programs if you don't comply and if you are not controlling anti-Semitism as we see it on campus. So
and saying free Palestine is not anti-Semitic.
Correct, but that's what they'll be saying. And that's what will be threatening to these academics, for sure. They'd be just like, we can't risk the funding. We'll just err on the side of shutting down this sort of dissent.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's happened quite a lot.
What else does she say? Online, algorithms must be transparent and prevent the amplification of online hate. So she has recently applauded Elon Musk for changing the algorithm to sort of cut back on anti-Semitic stuff that was appearing on Twitter. Mind you,
sorry, I was going to say Grok.
Grok went feral there, went wild at one point.
Yeah.
Started calling itself Hitler or something. And just
Mecha Hitler, yes, and suggesting wiping out the Jews.
Yes. Shortly after Elon Musk said, watch out, there's good things happening, much improved Grok coming out. Yeah.
We've removed the safeguards.
Yeah. Yeah. What else did she say about culture? So similar to universities, we're talking about festivals and things like that. Include terms in all public funding agreements with cultural institutions or festivals to allow for the efficient termination of funding where the institution or festival promotes or facilitates or does not deal effectively with hate or anti-Semitism. Don't deal with a Palestinian protester well enough, in Gillian's view, then you'll lose your funding. You'll lose your deductible gift recipient status as well. And also, Joe, the Envoy will work with the publicly funded broadcasters to encourage them to develop programs that add to social cohesion. Social cohesion, Joe, this was the big mantra from Albanese when introducing this Envoy, was about maintaining social cohesion. And this Special Envoy, Joe, I think, is wanting to implement a scheme that would do the exact opposite of promote social cohesion.
I'm all for increasing social cohesion. Yes. Perhaps stopping the slaughter of Palestinians in Gaza would increase social cohesion.
Funny that.
Yeah.
It's a unique
Perhaps
take.
working towards a two-state solution would increase social cohesion, do you think?
Yeah. Do you think? So, and just like on this publicly funded broadcaster, so Joe, I don't really watch much of television at all these days.
No, me
but I caught by chance a little bit of this woman appearing on 7:30 Report, and she was asked, "Okay, you've got a problem with the publicly funded broadcaster, ABC. What have we done, or what changes would you want that aren't currently in place? What do you want from the public broadcaster, or what have we done that's bad?" And she couldn't name one incident or one thing. She couldn't be specific in any way. And Sarah Ferguson actually was very good. Like, I don't like Sarah Ferguson, but on this issue, she was quite good in really hammering to her, come on, give us one example. I just want something. This woman couldn't give it. But the next day, she was interviewed on some other ABC mornings program or something like that. And she was pressed again to talk about, you know, what's the public broadcaster got wrong in this whole thing. And she said, well, 6 months ago there was a bombing of a hospital which the ABC reported as being by Israel, and in fact it was by Hamas. And this caused enormous distress. Let me find the wording here if I can. Because, 6 months ago, she said, the ABC ran a story repeatedly about a hospital in Gaza that had been bombed, and there was incomplete information, as there is only perhaps information emanating from Hamas. But it was alleged to be, the ABC reported as fact, that it had been bombed by Israel. And then horrified people were upset, and the Jewish community was looked at with disgust and worse. And then it turned out indeed that it was not bombed by Israel, that it had been from Gaza itself, and it had been a bomb that had fallen short. Now, that is not proven at all, and there's conflicting reports, and different groups say, in fact, it was a bomb from the Israelis. But Joe, since that time, well, that wasn't 6 months ago, it was at the start of the conflict, and since that time, that particular hospital has been bombed. Guess how many times?
5?
8.
Oh.
Openly bombed by the Israelis. No mistake.
Yep.
As has every other single hospital in Gaza been bombed. So this crazy envoy is saying, the ABC made a terrible mistake in accusing the Israelis of bombing a hospital.
Because they'd never do a thing like that.
Shock horror. They'd never do a thing like that. And we now know they've bombed it at least 8 times, and they've bombed every other friggin' hospital in Gaza. What planet are we living on, Joe, where she can say that they didn't mean it the first time, and that people took that as true, and people were horrified and upset? But she knows that, in fact, they have purposefully bombed those hospitals and every other hospital and university in Gaza.
Well, I think maybe the ABC should make a public apology saying, look, it's unclear as to who bombed the hospital that time. However, the following 7 times, it was definitely the IDF that bombed
8.
them.
Yeah. Yes, good point. Good, for clarification.
Yes, for clarification.
Good point. They should. Yeah. What if we back to her plan here? Let me just scroll through this. Where was I? The university report card, culture, festivals. Yeah. So I mentioned at the beginning, Joe, like Gillian Segal, that's one side of Jewish opinion. Shock horror, the Jewish community has various opinions, and there's a lady called Louise Adler who's a publisher, and she's on the advisory committee of the Jewish Council of Australia, a community organisation representing non-Zionist Australian Jews who support human rights for Palestinians. Some of her credentials, in case people think she's not Jewish enough or not, she's got something against the Jews or something. Born in Melbourne to Jacques and Ruth Adler, Jewish immigrants from Paris, France, who arrived in Australia in 1949. Jacques, her father, joined the French resistance in World War II after his own father, Simon, was rounded up and deported and eventually died at Auschwitz. And Ruth was taken to France as a 7-year-old by her parents fleeing from Nazi Germany. But her extended family were all murdered in the Holocaust. So she's got plenty of family history about the Holocaust. And she says the Special Envoy's plan is the latest push to weaponise anti-Semitism in Australia. She's highly critical of it. She says, one must acknowledge the remarkably effective Jewish community organisations in Australia behind the latest anti-Semitism report. Collectively, with their news-limited megaphone, they have successfully badgered the government of the day cowed the ABC, intimidated vice-chancellors, and threatened to defund arts organisations. She says that Segal's previous position as president of the ECAJ, the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, is an unequivocal advocate for Israel as the Jewish homeland, which should have made her disqualified for the role of a special envoy.
I agree.
And just getting back to numbers, for example, in the report, numbers have been cited as to the evidence of an escalation of anti-Semitic incidents. Nuancy and accuracy isn't paramount. 16 students at Sydney University feeling intimidated by the slogan "From the river to the sea" was reframed as 250 complaints. So there's a lot of dodginess happening with the statistics that she used to try and justify her claim of an increase in anti-Semitism. This lady, Adler, says, we do need to insist on contextualising these anti-Semitic attacks. Some are genuinely anti-Semitic, some are opportunistic byproducts of other unrelated conflicts, and some are by pro-Palestinian activists. What else does she say here? She's critical of the IHRA definition. She says the plan says, and this is true, in the plan that Gillian Segal submitted, she says the IHRA definition is the key to distinguishing legitimate criticism from hate, especially when anti-Zionism masks anti-Semitism. Louise Adler says, there you have it. So anti-Semitism is anti-Zionism and anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. The suite of laws protecting us, there is a suite of laws protecting us from racism, discrimination, hate speech and incitement of violence already deeply embedded in our civil society. Which, as you mentioned, Joe, we've got laws there. We don't need special ones. And she says the glaring absence here, a tactical move, is the question of Israel and its war on Gaza, as if anti-Semitism is a particular problem absent of any connection to Middle Eastern realpolitik. One oft-repeated concern in the document is that younger Australians are more susceptible to anti-Semitism than older generations. The reason, clearly unpalatable to the authors of this document, is that younger, media-literate Australians recognise the steadfastly uncritical advocacy of Israel by Australia's Jewish leadership. Young people see the death and destruction in the occupied territories and cannot avoid the blindingly obvious connection. Sometimes, Joe, it just has to be somebody with a Jewish background like that who says these things.
Yeah,
because
but
anybody else says it and they're just going to be
she'll
hammered.
get labelled as anti-Semitic.
Yeah, well.
Doesn't matter how Jewish you are, you're anti-Semitic.
Well, that's what that lawyer Lieberman, I can't remember his full name, but he was scathing of Jews who he thought weren't towing the line appropriately.
Yeah.
Were traitors.
Yeah.
Yeah, she'll be seen as a traitor by some. Meanwhile, so Joe, envoy, special envoy, main task, anti-Semitism because social cohesion. That was the reason for her original position. And Joe, her husband, via his trust, gave $50,000 to Advance Australia, the political party, Joe,
Right.
that is interested in
Kicking out
anything
anyone who's not
except
white.
social cohesion. Advance Australia has previously said a vote for Labor is endorsed by the Chinese Communist Party, that Teal candidates are hidden green politicians, and accused left-leaning politicians of being mostly on the same side as Hamas. So her husband's charities donations to a group which you could not characterise as promoting social cohesion.
No.
Bob Carr, former New South Wales Premier, said, "Whoa, I'm being told by Gillian Segal that if I criticise Israeli land grabs or violence against Palestinians, I'm talking anti-Semitism. But her husband's family trust is funding anti-Palestinian, anti-immigrant campaigns in opposition to Welcome to Country." And another commentator said, "The most egregious part is that while her husband was financially supporting the campaign against the Indigenous voice to Parliament, Segal has been appointed the Zionist voice, liaising with community and suggesting laws, but with zero accountability or democratic mandate." Joe, people are saying we had a big referendum and Indigenous people were not given the voice, and somehow this woman as a special envoy has managed to sidle into the halls of power and able to present reports and make these recommendations, and no referendum.
Without being anti-Semitic, I do think the Israel lobby it is incredibly powerful in many Western nations.
Yes.
To the point where most governments are unwilling to stand up for what's right because they're worried about upsetting a small but vocal minority.
Yeah. There's a QC. Oh, King's Counsel now, not Queen's Counsel, King's Counsel.
No. Yeah.
Robert Richter, distinguished Melbourne barrister, he said, "You wonder whose bright idea it was to appoint Gillian Segal as an envoy. Her position as a former president of ECAJ should have immediately disqualified her as having the capacity to speak objectively on the issue of anti-Semitism, because the ECAJ is one of the triumvirate of principal lobbying Jewish organisations seeking to excuse the Gaza genocide through its dedication to conflating criticism of Israeli politics with anti-Semitism. What could have possessed Albo to appoint, appear with, and potentially lead support to organisations whose functions appear focused on acceptance of war crimes so long as they are perpetuated by Jews, the likes of Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, the President of Israel, etc." Let me read that again. What could have proposed this to appoint, appear with, and potentially then support organisations? Yes, on organisations who are accepting those war crimes. He says Louise Adler has brilliantly pinpointed the barefaced fraud sought to be perpetrated on Australian people and its government to get it to expect special pleading rather than look at racism generally as a source of hate speech and actual incitement to violence. "We don't need special legislated treatment of anti-Semitism. The current legal position is adequate," says Robert Richter.
Yeah, but what would he know? He's only a KC.
Yeah, what would he know? Yeah. Yeah. There's another group, Joe, Jews Against Occupation. They reject her plan.
Fair enough.
What are the highlights here? Segal did not consult with any of the anti-Zionist Jewish organisations in Australia when she compiled her action plan.
But why would she?
Because they'd say things she wouldn't want to hear.
Exactly. She's right and she knows it because she says so.
Yeah. You really have to admire these Jewish groups that are so trying to promote the human rights of the Palestinians and, just within their communities, they would be ostracised.
Yeah.
Joe, free speech warriors. There's a lot of them about on News Corp. And
Except when it comes to speaking about Palestine.
Yes. Like ordinarily, if you were to promote some idea that would restrict free speech, these people would be jumping up and down about how freedom of speech is our most important thing, and you can't touch that.
No.
And, different friends I have on Facebook or whatever who would be always rabbiting on about that sort of stuff. Not a peep out of them about the massive infringement of freedom of speech that Segal's plan entails. Not a peep from these people. Because they're not about freedom of speech. It's about certain people and certain ideologies. They want to have free speech and not others. Yeah. Hi to Alison, who's just appeared in the chat room. Yes, John, I did get your email, and I can't remember what it was about, but I think you only sent it today, didn't you? So might get on to the next episode with that one. Where was I? So, yeah, free speech warriors. What else have I got here? Meanwhile, Joe. So that's enough about Gillian Segal. That's a 42-minute rant about that.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Joe, according to David Shoebridge, Green Senator, Australia has exported F-35 fighter jet parts directly to Israel as recently as this week.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So we are helping them conduct their genocide by supplying parts. We could easily say no, but that would require some moral.
But Israel has the right to defend itself. We have to supply them with parts for their defence.
Meanwhile, the real hate speech epidemic I'm really skipping over my words today, Joe. The real hate speech epidemic is the anti-China McCarthyist rantings of our media, including the ABC. I just shake my head as I read different news sources these days, particularly the ABC, where the way they just will give a report and they'll talk matter-of-factly about the increasingly belligerent Chinese, and they're increasing their military power and their aggressive stance and their threatening postures and all the rest of it. And that is the epidemic of hate speech that's happening in this country, which is being conducted by the Murdoch enterprises, in particular Sky News. So what have we got here? That's the one. Quickly, Joe, AUKUS. So the Pentagon, via Elbridge Colby, the US Undersecretary of Defence, is urging Japan and Australia to clarify what role they would play if the US and China went to war over Taiwan. So he's been pushing Japan and Australia. Come on, you're going to confirm that you're going to join us if we go into a fight over Taiwan. According to the newspaper, Financial Times, it caught the Tokyo and Canberra officials off guard as the US does not offer a blank cheque guarantee to defend Taiwan. So the US was wanting us to provide a blank cheque guarantee to defend Taiwan without them actually offering one. At the same time, they're leading a review of the nuclear submarine deal where they're basically saying, of course, if it looks like we just can't give you these submarines, we can't give them to you. Like if we need them for our own purposes, you're just not going to get any. So
I suggest we agree to commit the same proportion of resources that we have as they commit to any future joint defence endeavour.
Well,
so if they commit 5% of their army, we'll commit 5% of our army.
To what?
To whatever.
Why would we do that? Why would we agree to tag to?
Well, but I mean, so as long as they agree to do the same for any conflict we're involved in.
Right. I don't want to be, in an agreement with the Americans to join them in wars because they're the ones always going to war. We don't want to be in that deal. We don't want to make a
Article
commitment.
5 of the UN has only been invoked once.
Which one was Article 5?
Article 5 is an attack on one country is an attack on all countries.
Right. When
It's
was
the
that
Mutual
time?
Defence Pact.
Mm.
It was invoked by the US after September the 11th for their invasion of Afghanistan.
There we go. Yeah. So, no, Joe, I don't want to be involved in any deal with the US because they'll just drag us into conflicts that they get involved in. And they do that at a drop of a hat. Yeah, so as Rex Patrick said, unless Australia commits to standing beside its unreliable coercive trade partner in a war against China, the US won't commit to handing over the AUKUS nuclear subs that it can't actually deliver anyway. Have I got that right? The other thing, Joe, with the subs is part of the deal is we put Aussie sailors, submariners, in these subs, in American subs, as part of training. And if they go to war with China, we'll have Aussie submariners in these subs.
At risk, yes.
Yes. And, I don't think they're going to stop somewhere to let these guys off on the nearest deserted island. They're just
Well, no, because they'll be part of the battle crew, so they can't.
Yes. Yeah, indeed. Joe, over to the crazy disunited States of America. ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. Immigration and Customs Enforcement sounds like a typical bureaucracy on the face of it, but they're essentially masked Gestapo thugs pointing loaded weapons at people, Joe.
And have a larger budget than the Russian army.
It's these guys are masked. They're getting around as if they were SAS troops and have just rappelled out of a helicopter in Afghanistan, and they're walking the streets of America, rounding up Mexicans from restaurants and crop fields and stuff.
Not just Mexicans,
Yes.
Americans as well. US citizens.
Americans as well. The problem for the real Americans, Joe, is that they won't have a farmer who can advocate for their little boy. Like we remember last week we talked about Trump was saying, well, of course, if you've been working on the farm and you've been a good boy for 14 years, the farmer could advocate for you and you might be able to stay.
The owner could advocate.
The owner, yes, that's right, yeah. I'll just play a clip which is probably not great audio-wise, but for the people watching, just get a load of the military style of this, and it's in fact reporters that they're pointing guns at.
No, not me, dude. Not fucking me. Come on, man. I'm the fucking press. I get you. You don't need to fucking aim it. Why even aiming that shit at me, man? I'm like not a fucking threat. Please de-escalate.
That is a stun grenade. Are you serious right now? Maybe you guys should just go ahead and record me, bro. This is me. This is my job. You're not going to intimidate me. We still have a...
The masks and the carry-on, Joe.
Yeah, they are completely above the law, they think. You remember when there was that video of them deliberately shooting at unarmed press?
Yes.
I'm honestly surprised that nobody decided to take pot shots at those officers.
Yeah.
Because that was completely unwarranted.
Yeah.
And if you've got a second amendment that you claim you need to protect you against the tyrannical government, where the fuck are the Second Amendment people?
Mm. Well, can we rely on Donald Trump to sort things out? Can he sort out the mess that he created? This is one of his truths, Joe. I am on my way back from Texas and watched in disbelief as thugs were violently throwing rocks and bricks at ICE officers while they were moving down a roadway in their car and or official vehicle. Tremendous damage was done to these brand new vehicles. I know for a fact that these officers are having a hard time with allowing this to happen, in that it shows such total disrespect for, in capital letters, law and order. Therefore, I am directing Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem and Border Czar Tom Homan to instruct all ICE Homeland Security or any other law enforcement officer who is on the receiving end of throwing rocks, bricks, or any other form of assault to stop their car and arrest these, in capital letters, slime balls, using whatever means is necessary to do so. I am giving total authorisation for ICE to protect itself just like they protect the public. I never want to see a car carrying a law enforcement officer attacked again, in capital letters. Authorisation immediately granted for arrest and incarceration. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Well, they don't protect the average citizen, so they shouldn't protect themselves.
Do you know anyone planning a trip to the United States as a tourist? Are they MAGA?
Yeah, I know someone who had their flights cancelled and they've rebooked.
Wow.
Yeah, and I have no idea what they're thinking.
Yeah. There was a flood over there in Texas. Did you see that? Flash flood?
Yeah, of course I did. It was a Christian Bible camp on the banks of a river that's built in a floodplain that apparently they lobbied to have removed from the flood map, probably to reduce their insurance premiums.
There we go.
If you saw the speed the water came up, though, it was literally 3-4 meters in 3 minutes. It was incredible, the speed.
Oh, I've got a description for what it was like, Joe.
Biblical?
From the dear leader himself. Here we go.
There's one story that one person said it had to be 60 feet at one moment. This is like a giant, giant wave in the Pacific Ocean that the best surfers in the world would be afraid to surf.
Oh, there we go, Joe. A giant, giant wave.
A tsunami?
His command of English is so poor where, you know, a giant, giant wave, not just a giant wave, Joe, but a giant, giant wave that the best surfers in the world.
A bigly one even?
Yes, hang on, back to wrong screen. That even the best surfers in the world would be afraid to surf. That tells you, does that conjure up an image? Because on a small one, they might have considered being there in the flash flood and having a surf, but not that one. It's too big.
No.
Yeah. There was the new Superman movie out, Joe.
Oh, yeah. Apparently it's woke. I did see a nice meme that showed how Superman had gone woke, according to Fox News. And then the photo was Superman marching a couple of Klan men.
Right. The White House, on their X account, put out an image which was basically Donald Trump superimposed as Superman, truth, justice, and the American way, and a Trump presidency, and it was just a picture of Donald Trump as Superman.
Well, apparently Superman has renounced his American citizenship because the American way is no longer the human way, and it's now truth, justice, and the human way.
Oh, is that what it said in the movie?
No. Apparently the comics did this a few years back. But I believe it's been repeated or him revoking his American citizenship was in the current film.
I was a bit naughty with some friends of mine the other day at a dinner party.
That's unlike you.
Yeah. And the good friends, they were talking about they were going to go and watch the latest Superman movie. And I just obviously had a look on my face, which was unimpressed. Joe, I just think I haven't been to the cinema in so long because the whole cinema experience seems to be dominated by Marvel superhero stuff for the last 20 years. Yeah. And I sort of poo-pooed the idea of watching a superhero movie And they said, don't you like comics? I was like, well, I did when I was 12,
Yes.
bit naughty. Anyway.
When I was a child, I spoke like a child.
Yeah. Sorry, Sam. You're probably not listening to this, but yeah.
The only one I can be bothered with is Deadpool, and that's because he's just so sarcastic and completely irreverent.
Right. Okay. That sounds like something I might go for as well.
Mm-hmm.
We've previously talked about Al-Qaeda Alcatraz. So this is a prison that they've knocked up quickly to hold the people that ICE are arresting.
It's a tent city in the middle of Hurricane's Alley, just before hurricane season.
So, America claims to be, the leaders of the free world and upholding the greatest standards of civilization. And this is how they treat people who have not been subjected to any form of trial. They've just been scooped off the streets by the thugs that you saw in the clip before the last one. And this is what, who is this person? This is, I think Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, who toured Alligator Alcatraz. She might be a Democratic rep, I think. Anyway, how did she describe Alligator Alcatraz?
Let's be clear, throughout this entire tour, it was repeated over and over that the state is working hand in glove with ICE. This facility was inspected by ICE. They review their detention standards. They are using cages. These detainees are living in cages. The pictures that you've seen don't do it justice. They are essentially packed into cages, wall-to-wall humans, 32 detainees per cage. The only thing inside those cages are their bunk beds, and there are 3 tiny toilets that are toilet units that have a sink attached to it. So they essentially drink, they get their drinking water and they brush their teeth, where they poop in the same unit. They bragged that they went above standards, supposedly, and gave them a 3-foot privacy wall that stretches the length inside the 32 detainee cage, a 3-foot privacy wall that stretches the length of the 3 toilets in a row. The showers provide no privacy at all. There are no curtains on it. It's a big open shower unit. There are, small walls in each shower, but we're talking about all 900 men who are held in this facility. It is built currently for 1,000, and they have no privacy at all when they're showering. For meals, when we walked through the quote-unquote meal prep area, the kitchen area, for lack of a better term, they had the portions that were available for detainees, and they had the portions that were available for employees being prepared at the same time. The portions available for employees, large pieces of roast chicken, large sausages, and the detainees' lunches were a small, gray turkey and cheese sandwich, an apple, and chips, and that's it. We're talking about fully grown men being fed very small portions.
Well, you wouldn't want to pay money to feed these people. They're illegal immigrants.
The sort of behaviour that they are accusing China of, and they're openly committing this behaviour. While all this is happening, where people are finding it, why would you ever go to America? China's opened up visa-free access to a huge range of countries. So there's an enormous number of tourists now entering China, and it's a fantastic PR exercise for China because these people and a lot of sort of vloggers and social influencers are rocking over there and having a great time, saying the place is clean, civilised, organised. And so there's a lot of, again, in that under 35s news space, a lot of positive stories about China and how it's treating its tourists, as opposed to the negative stories in the United States where they're arresting people because they don't have the correct accommodation booked to something. Then there's a suspicion that a German backpacker might want to overstay their welcome, and so they're getting turned around and stuff like that. So completely different stories happening that way. And Joe, just for a final laugh to finish off with a bit of levity, Joe, have you ever wondered why America is not mentioned in the Bible?
Because it didn't exist.
I think there's more of a conspiracy to it, Joe.
Oh.
There's something more to it. Marjorie Taylor Greene, let's just see what she had to say when she appeared on this guy's show.
America, if you've read Revelations, is not in Revelations.
Yeah.
And America, if you've read Revelations, is not in Revelations.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to talk about that. And we need to say, why is America not in Revelations? And I think we could come up with all kinds of theories, but I know for a fact it's not in there.
Yeah. America is not in the Bible for the same reason that Ford F-150s are not in the Bible. He was Jesus of Nazareth, not Jesus of North Dakota. He was born in Bethlehem, not Boise, Idaho. He called himself the King of the Jews, not the King of New Jersey.
And he was given that entire vision and shown all of that. He wasn't shown America. So there's a clear reason, and we don't know why. But
I was going to point out the contradiction between there's a clear reason and we don't know why, but I'm still trying to get past America in the Bible. I swear, if you ask these people to name all the original 13 colonies, one of them would probably be Israel. Because, like, America in the Bible.
Well, yes.
Was that a positive note to finish on, Joe? That's a fun, positive note.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, the Bible is better in English because that's the language that Jesus spoke. Yeah. He wrote the King David, the King James Bible.
Yeah. I'm going to get onto this book that I read. Oh, I don't have it handy. But
Idiots of America?
No, it was examining the political system in China compared to the political system in the US and describing the experience that people had to go through to rise through the ranks of the party and to get to positions of power. Whether you agree with the system or not, you have a lot of experience in public administration by the time you reach the upper echelons in Chinese government, and you just don't make beginner mistakes, and you're not stupid, because to get your way there, you have to have some smarts about you. And someone
recently, people in government had a lot of experience in the US. It's only the Trump administration that's decided to go through with a broom and sweep out anyone with any experience to put lackeys in.
Yeah. Well, yes, but the level of experience is quite extraordinary. So that will come up in a future episode at some stage. So, right. Okay. Well, there we go. At least we've ended on a positive, humorous note with that one. You can contemplate that one, dear listener. Why wasn't America mentioned in Revelation? And
apparently, was it the Mormons believe that the Garden of Eden is somewhere in the United States?
Of course it would be.
Yeah. And of course, Jesus, having left Israel, went to America with a group of white people and settled.
Now you're talking Mormonism.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's some incredible stories in Mormonism.
All right. Good night, Alison. Good night, everybody. We will talk to you next week. Bye for now.
And it's a good night from him.